Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku married to Mount Lady. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The rain didn't fall, it hammered. It was a torrential, angry deluge that turned the sky the color of a bruised plum and transformed the earth into a sliding, treacherous soup. Utakayama, known to the world as the pro-hero Lady, wiped a mixture of mud and rainwater from her eyes, her breath hitching in her throat. Being 68 feet tall usually made her feel invincible. It made the world look like a toy set, fragile and precious, something she could scoop up and protect. But today, surrounded by the jagged, collapsing walls of the Giga Canyon in the prefectural outskirts, being a giant felt less like a superpower and more like a curse. Status report. She screamed, her voice booming like thunder, vibrating against the canyon walls. Is the evacuation complete? Down below, near her massive purple boot, a rescue worker waved a flare. To you, he looked no bigger than an ant. Sector 4 is clear. But the villain is destabilizing the northern ridge. The Foundation is going to give. You grit her teeth. She was 29 years old. In the hero industry, specifically for female heroes in the limelight, that was the beginning of the twilight years. The media had already started running articles about the new generation, featuring the fresh-faced graduates from UA, who were faster, stronger, and hadn't yet developed the cynicism that etched lines around Yu's eyes. Her ranking had slipped from the top 10 to the top 20, and recently, hovering dangerously close to the 30s, she needed a win. She needed to remind the world that Empty Lady wasn't just a pretty face or a billboard mascot. She was a titan, but the villain, a lunatic calling himself Tectonic, wasn't interested in ratings. He was interested in burying a small mining town under 3 million tons of rock. The ground shuddered. A sickening crack echoed through the ravine, louder than the thunder. He's triggering it. The rescue worker screamed over the comms. You looked up. The northern ridge, a slab of granite the size of a skyscraper, was tilting. Gravity was taking hold. Below it lay the only exit route for the last convoy of evacuees. Not on my watch, you growled. She didn't think. She lunged. Ideally, a hero creates a plan. Ideally, she would have support. But Kamiri Woods was 3 cities away dealing with a hostage crisis, and Death Arms had retired 2 years ago due to injury. She was the heavy hitter here. She was the wall. You slammed her shoulder into the falling mountain face. The impact was catastrophic. The sound of stone grinding against her gigantified skin was deafening. Pain, white-hot and immediate, shot through her left shoulder and down her spine. Her boots dug into the muddy canyon floor, carving trenches deep enough to be riverbeds. Go! She roared, the strain evident in her magnified voice. Get the convoy out! Now! The buses below revved their engines, speeding beneath the arch of her body as she held the collapsing cliff at bay. She was essentially doing a wall sit with a mountain on her back. Heavy. It was so heavy. Her muscles screamed. The lactic acid burned like fire. The rain slicked the rock, making her grip precarious. She could feel the villain somewhere above her, laughing, his vibration quirk humming through the stone she was holding. Just hold it. Just another 30 seconds. She counted the buses. 1, 2, 3. Her knees shook. The mud beneath her feet gave way slightly. The mountain slipped an inch. Crack. A secondary landslide triggered by the pressure slammed into her exposed side. It was like being hit by a freight train. You cried out, her breath knocked from her massive lungs. She dropped to one knee. The mountain above her lurched downward. Empty Lady is down. I repeat, the structural integrity is failing. I'm not down. She wheezed, tasting copper. She forced her arms up, locking her elbows. She was trembling violently now. If she let go, the last bus would be crushed flat. If she let go, she died. If she shrank down now, the rock would plummet instantly. She was trapped. A beam of concentrated sonic energy blasted from the ridge above, Tectonic's attack. It struck her right in the chest, shattering the armor of her costume and cracking a rib. You screamed. Her vision swam. The gray sky spun. This is it, she thought, a cold realization washing over the heat of the pain. This is how I go out. Not at a gala, not in a blaze of glory, but crushed in a mud pit while my ratings drop. She looked down. The last bus was stalling in the mud. Move, she whispered, tears mixing with the rain on her giant face. Please, just move, the mountain groaned. It was winning. Her arms began to buckle. She closed her eyes, bracing for the crushing darkness. And then, the air pressure changed. It wasn't a sound, it was a sensation. The static in the air spiked. The roar of the rain was silenced by a singular, piercing boom that sounded like a jet breaking the sound barrier at ground level. A streak of green lightning tore through the gray clouds. Smash! The wind pressure alone nearly knocked the convoy over. Yu's eyes snapped open. Someone, had slammed into the side of the falling mountain face. Not with the size of a giant, but with the concentrated force of a nuclear warhead. The massive slab of granite she was holding didn't just stop falling, it jerked upward. Yu gasped, the weight on her shoulders lightening just enough for her to draw a breath. Hovering in the air near her head, surrounded by crackling tendrils of black energy and green electricity, was a figure. He looked impossibly small compared to her, a speck of dust against the storm. But the aura rolling off him was heavier than the mountain itself. The tattered yellow cape fluttered in the gale. The dark green cowl with the metal rabbit ear protrusions. The eyes that glowed with an eerie, bioluminescent teal. The number one hero. Deku. He wasn't looking at the camera. He wasn't smiling his trademark nervous smile. He was pure focus. Takayama-san. His voice cut through the storm, amplified not by size, but by sheer intensity. Maintain your brace. I'm going to alleviate the structural load. Do not shrink yet. Yu blinked, her brain struggling to catch up. Deku? What are you? Black whip, centipede. Black tendrils exploded from his back, not like the whips he used in his debut years, but massive, thick cables of dark energy. They shot out, drilling into the canyon walls on either side, anchoring the falling rock face like suspension bridge cables. Float. Gear shift. Low gear. The air around him warped. Izuku Midoriya, 21 years old and bearing the weight of the world, grabbed the edge of the mountain that was crushing her. He didn't just push it, he manipulated the laws of physics around it. On my mark, you slide out. Deku yelled, his teeth gritted, veins bulging against his mask. 3, 2, 1. Move! With a roar that shook the valley, Deku pulled. The black whips went taut, singing with tension. He yanked the millions of tons of rock upward and backward, defying gravity. You didn't waste the miracle. She threw herself forward, scrambling on her hands and knees, sliding through the mud away from the impact zone. Behind her, Deku released the tension. Boom! The mountain slammed into the earth where she had been standing a second ago. The shockwave flattened the trees for a mile radius. Mud sprayed into the stratosphere. You rolled onto her back, panting, her giant form heaving. She was safe. The convoy was safe, but the villain was still there. High upon the ridge, Tectonic screamed in rage. No! You ruin everything, hero scum! He raised his hands, the earth trembling as he prepared to bring down the other side of the canyon to bury them all. Danger sense, Deku muttered. You heard it even over the rain. He didn't look tired. He looked irritated. Takayama-san, cover your eyes. You threw her arm over her face. Deku vanished. He didn't fly. He simply ceased to be in one spot and appeared in another. He moved faster than human processing speed. He appeared directly in front of Tectonic, Texas. The villain didn't even have time to blink. Smash. It wasn't a kill shot. It was a surgical strike of air pressure. The villain was blasted backward, pinned instantly against a rock formation, unconscious before he hit the stone. The shockwave dispersed the rain clouds above them, punching a hole of clear blue sunlight through the storm. Silence returned to the canyon, save for the dripping of water and the distant rumble of the retreating buses. You lay there, staring up at that patch of blue sky. Her adrenaline crashed. The pain in her shoulder, her ribs, her legs, it all came rushing back at once. Her quirk flickered. She couldn't hold the form anymore. With a hiss of steam, she began to shrink. The world grew larger around her. The trees became towers again. The mud puddles became lakes. The The 68-foot Titan vanished, leaving behind a woman in a torn skin-tight suit, bruised, battered, and falling from the height of her own collapse. She was 10 feet off the ground, plummeting into the debris. She was too weak to land it. She squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the hard impact. It never came. Strong arms caught her. The impact was gentle, cushioned by a subtle field of energy. She felt herself being cradled, held tight against a chest that felt like iron plate armor wrapped in warmth. You opened her eyes. Izuku Midoriya was holding her. He had caught her mid-fall, hovering a few inches above the muddy slurry. His cowl was pulled back now, revealing the face that was plastered on merchandise all over the world. He had changed since his UA days. The baby fat was gone, replaced by a sharp jawline and a scar that cut through his left eyebrow. His hair was still a messy green nest, but his eyes, they were older. They held the weight of One for All, the legacy of All Might, and the scars of the final war. He looked down at her, his expression filled with unmasked concern. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice soft, a stark contrast to the command he'd shouted moments ago. You stared at him. She was Utakayama, the diva, the spotlight chaser. She was supposed to be the one on top. But right now, she felt incredibly small. She coughed, wincing as her cracked rib flared. "I had it under control, you know. I loosened it for you." Izuku blinked, then a small, genuine smile tugged at the corner of his lips. The terrifying godlike aura vanished, replaced by the polite boy she remembered. "Right. Of course. You did great, MT lady. That hold, you saved everyone on those buses. I just did the cleanup." He adjusted his grip. He was carrying her bridal style. Normally, you would have leaped out of his arms. She would have posed, struck a V sign, and checked for cameras. But her body refused to listen. Her head lulled against his shoulder. The smell of ozone, sweat, and rain clung to him. It was surprisingly comforting. "My leg," she murmured. "Think I twisted it." "I know. I'm taking you to the medics," Izuku said. He began to walk. He didn't fly. Maybe he knew the motion would hurt her injuries. He just walked through the mud, his boots steady, carrying her as if she weighed nothing. "You're heavy," she mumbled, delirious. "Wait, no. I'm heavy. I didn't diet." Izuku chuckled, a warm sound that vibrated in his chest. "You're light as a feather, Takayama-san. Just rest." They emerged from the canyon mouth. The storm had passed, leaving a glistening, wet world behind. And there, waiting at the police barricade, was the chaotic circus of the media. News helicopters circled overhead like vultures. Vans with satellite dishes were parked in rows. As soon as Deku emerged from the mist, carrying the unconscious form of MT Lady, the silence broke. Flashes erupted like strobe lights. Click. Click. Click click click. "Deku-san! Look this way. MT Lady. Is she alive? Is that a rescue or a romance?" Izuku stiffened. He hated the press. He usually zipped away the second the villain was cuffed. But he couldn't zip away now. He was carrying a wounded colleague. He looked down at you. She had passed out from the pain and exhaustion, her head tucked securely into the crook of his neck, her hand gripping the lapel of his hero's suit. Her torn bodysuit revealed bruises, and mud streaked her usually flawless face. For a moment, Izuku forgot the cameras. He felt a surge of fierce protectiveness. She had held up a mountain. She had fought until her bones cracked. She deserved respect, not tabloid speculation. He looked up, glaring directly at the nearest drone camera with a look that could freeze magma. "Give her space," he said. He didn't shout, but the microphones picked it up. "She's a hero. Show some respect." He walked past the line of reporters, ignoring the microphones shoved in his face, and gently laid her onto a stretcher waiting by the ambulance. "Take care of her," Izuku told the paramedics. "Check for rib fractures and exhaustion." "Yes, sir, Deku, sir." Izuku lingered for a split second, looking at her sleeping face. He brushed a stray lock of blonde hair out of her eyes, a subconscious, gentle gesture, before realizing what he was doing. He pulled his hand back as if burned, blushing furiously as he realized 50 cameras had just captured that. "Oh no," he thought, the blood draining from his face. Uraraka-san is going to tease me to death. Kaken is going to kill me, he charged one for all. I have to go. Paperwork. Patrol. Justice. With a burst of green lightning, the number one hero vanished into the sky, leaving behind a media frenzy that was already uploading the photos to the internet. 2 days later, you woke up in her apartment. She hated hospitals. As soon as she was cleared, she had discharged herself to recover in her own bed, surrounded by her expensive silk sheets and her collection of perfumes. She felt like she had been run over by a steamroller. Her chest was wrapped in bandages, and her ankle was in a brace. She groaned, reaching for the remote to turn on the TV. She needed to check the hero rankings. The canyon incident was high profile. Surely, her heroic sacrifice had bumped her up a few spots. Maybe she was back in the top 15. She turned on the news. The screen wasn't showing the canyon. It wasn't showing the villain tectonic. It was showing a photo. The photo. It was high definition, taken by a drone at the perfect angle. The sun was breaking through the clouds behind them, creating a halo effect. Izuku Midoriya, looking rugged and masculine, was cradling her in his arms. Her head was on his chest. He was looking at her with an expression that, to the untrained eye, looked deeply, passionately tender. And then there was the clip of him brushing the hair from her face. The churn at the bottom of the screen read, Deku's secret love? The giant and the symbol of peace. What? You croaked. She grabbed her phone. It had exploded. Not just texts, thousands of notifications. Twitter was trending. Deku lady, tall order of love, size difference. She didn't want to click that one. She opened an article from Hero Weekly. For years, the public has wondered who would capture the heart of the elusive number one hero, Deku. The answer seems to have been hiding in plain sight. Or rather, towering above us all. Sources say the chemistry between MT Lady and Deku at the Giga Canyon was electric. Is this the power couple we've been waiting for? Analysts predict MT Lady's agency stock is about to triple. You froze. She reread the last sentence. Agency stock is about to triple. She quickly navigated to the Hero Billboard charts live tracking site. Current popularity trend. 1. Deku steady. 2. Dynamite down slightly. 2. Angry at press conference. 3. Shoto steady. 8. Empty Lady up 14 spots. 14 spots. She hadn't seen a jump like that since her debut when she kicked Kamui Woods in the face. She stared at the photo on the TV screen. Deku looked good. Strong. Reliable. And the public was eating it up. They loved the contrast. The brooding, workaholic number one and the glamorous, larger-than-life diva. It was a narrative goldmine. A slow, sly grin spread across Yu's face. She winced as her split lips stretched, but she didn't care. Her phone buzzed. It was her agent. Yu. Have you seen the news? The advertisers are going crazy. We have offers from perfume brands, security firms, even a wedding planning service. They all want the couple of the century. Calm down, Hideo, Yu said, her voice raspy but calculating. She twirled a lock of hair around her finger. Tell them we're considering our options. Considering? You, are you actually dating him? Why didn't you tell me? I'm not dating him, you idiot, you said, looking at the freeze frame of Izuku's blushing face as he ran away. But, she thought about the way he had held her. The way he had protected her dignity. He was a good guy. A really nice guy. Too nice, probably. He wouldn't know how to handle this. He was probably hyperventilating in a gym somewhere right now. But Izuku Midoriya had a problem, too. The press constantly criticized him for being too perfect, too distant, like a monk dedicated only to justice. They said he lacked humanity. A romance, a messy, high-profile, spectacular romance, would ground him. It would make him relatable, and it would make her the most talked-about woman in Japan. Hideo, you said, sitting up, ignoring the pain in her ribs. Get me a meeting with Deku. Not an emergency team-up. A private meeting. What for? You narrowed her eyes at the TV screen. I have a business proposition. The mighty tower Deku's agency HQ top floor. Izuku Midoriya had his face buried in his hands. I can't believe this, he groaned. Across the desk, Ochako Uraraka was trying very hard not to laugh, and failing. It's a great photo, Deku-kun. You look so dashing. I look like I'm proposing. Izuku mumbled through his fingers. I was just checking her for a concussion. And the hair thing, there was mud near her eye. It was a sanitary measure. Tell that to the internet. Uraraka swiped on her tablet. Fanfiction is already being written. Apparently, you two have been meeting in secret at the top of MT Fuji because it's the only place big enough for a date. Izuku lifted his head, looking horrified. That doesn't even make sense. Stop whining, nerd, Bakugo barked from the corner of the office, where he was aggressively reading a comic book. Just issue a denial statement, and kill the story. You're distracted. It's annoying. I tried. Izuku said. My PR team released a statement saying we are just colleagues. The headline ran as, Deku shy about new love, tries to keep it private. They want it to be true, Uraraka said gently. People need a feel-good story after the last few months of villain attacks. The intercom on Izuku's desk buzzed. Midoriya-san? His secretary's voice came through. You have a visitor. She doesn't have an appointment, but, well, she's insisting. And she's scary. Izuku paled. Who is it? Empty lady, Bakugo snorted, tossing his comic book aside. Speak of the devil and she appears. I'm leaving. I don't deal with headaches this early in the afternoon. Kaken, wait, don't leave me alone. Have fun with your wife, Deku, Bakugo smirked, blasting the door open and stomping out. Uraraka gave him a sympathetic thumbs up and followed Bakugo. Good luck, she whispered, closing the door. Izuku was left alone in his massive, sunlight-filled office. He straightened his tie. He smoothed his hair. He tried to look like the #1 hero and not a 21-year-old who had never actually been on a real date. The door opened. Yu Takayama walked in. She wasn't in her hero costume. She was wearing a sharp, tailored business suit that cost more than Izuku's first car. She walked with a slight limp, leaning on a cane with a diamond-encrusted handle, but her presence filled the room. She wore dark sunglasses, which she removed slowly for dramatic effect. Takayama-san! Izuku stood up immediately, rushing around his desk to offer her a chair. You shouldn't be walking. Your ribs. Your ankle. Sit down, Midoriya, she said, waving him off. She lowered herself gracefully into the guest chair. I heal fast. And call me you. We're practically married, according to Vogue Japan. Izuku turned bright red. I am so sorry about that. I've been trying to clear it up, but the press is out of control. I can hold a press conference tomorrow and deny everything explicitly. I'll take full responsibility if it's damaging your image. Damaging? You laughed. It was a dry, cynical sound. She reached into her purse and pulled out a folder, sliding it across the desk. Look at the numbers, green bean. Izuku blinked. Green bean? He opened the folder. It was a printout of analytics. My approval rating is up 400%, you said, crossing her legs. Merchandise sales up. Agency requests up. For the first time in 3 years, I'm not that giant lady who destroys buildings. I'm Deku's partner. I'm relevant. Izuku stared at the charts. He analyzed them quickly. She was right. The correlation was undeniable. Okay, Izuku said slowly. So, it's a good thing? Then we can just let the rumor die out naturally over a few weeks, and you keep the boost? You leaned forward. Her violet eyes locked onto his. Or, we don't let it die. Izuku tilted his head. I don't understand. Midoriya, she sighed, dropping the persona for a second. She looked tired. You're the #1. You're untouchable. But you have a problem. I've seen the polls. People respect you, they trust you, but they think you're a machine. You're All Might without the smile. You're a workaholic who sleeps in his office and eats energy jelly for dinner. Izuku glanced guiltily at the pouch of energy jelly on his desk. You need to be humanized, you continued. You need a personal life. And I need staying power. I need to secure my legacy before the next crop of kids pushes me out. She took a breath. I'm proposing a contract. A partnership. We date. Publicly. We go to galas, we do patrols together, we let the paparazzi get their shots. We ride this wave for a year. I get back into the top 5, You get to look like a normal human being capable of love. Izuku stared at her. His mouth hung open slightly. You want to fake date? Fake marriage, actually, you corrected casually, examining her fingernails. Dating is messy. Marriage is a brand. It's cleaner. And the marriage? Izuku squeaked. His voice cracked like he was 15 again. It's a business arrangement, Midoriya. It happens all the time in Hollywood. We sign papers, we move in together, for appearances, we assist each other's agencies. After a year or two, we have an amicable separation due to conflicting schedules. No hurt feelings, maximum profit. She looked at him, waiting for him to kick her out. To lecture her on the sanctity of heroism. To tell her that heroes shouldn't lie to the public. Izuku looked down at his hands. He thought about the loneliness of the last few years. The constant pressure. The way civilians sometimes looked at him with fear because of his overwhelming power. He looked at you. He saw the desperation hidden behind her confidence. He remembered the canyon, how she had held that mountain until her body broke, refusing to let those people die. She was a hero. She was terrified of fading away, of being useless, saving people. Izuku muttered. What? You asked? You want to save your career, Izuku said, looking up. His eyes were clear now. And you think this will help you keep saving people? You blinked, caught off guard. Well, yes. If I lose my ranking, I lose funding. I lose support items. I can't do what I do without the backing. Izuku took a deep breath. He was terrible at lying. He was terrible at acting. But he was great at helping friends. I can't do it for the fame, Izuku said firmly. And I won't lie about who we are as heroes. Yu's shoulders slumped slightly. Right. I figured. It was a stupid idea, but Izuku interrupted. If you're asking for my help because you're scared of the future, then I'll help you. I'll do it. Yu froze. You will? But we have rules, Izuku said, his analytical brain kicking in. He grabbed a pen and a notepad. Rule 1. No compromising on missions. Safety first. Rule 2. We tell our closest friends the truth so we don't hurt them. Rule 3. He looked up at her, a slight blush returning to his cheeks. We try to actually be friends. Living together might be difficult if we aren't. You stared at him. She had expected a rejection. She had expected a lecture. She hadn't expected the number one hero to start drafting a roommate agreement. A genuine smile, one that didn't reach the cameras, softened her face. Deal, green bean, she said softly. Rule 3 is a deal. Izuku stood up and extended his hand. Then, I guess we're partners, empty lady. She stood up, leaning on her cane, and took his scarred hand in hers. Call me you, she said. If we're going to be husband and wife, you can't call me by my hero name. All right, Izuku stammered. You-san. As they shook hands, the sun set over the city, casting long shadows across the office. Neither of them noticed the drone hovering outside the window, capturing the moment they sealed the pact. The headlines the next morning would be apocalyptic. It's official, DKU and MT. Lady engaged. Izuku looked at the handshake, unaware that he had just signed up for the most difficult mission of his life. Defeating All for One was hard. Living with Utakayama? That was going to be a plus ultra challenge. By the way, you said, releasing his hand and turning to the door. My apartment is too small for 2 people and my ego. I'm moving into your place this weekend. Make room in the closet. Wait, what? My place is a dorm room basically. Not anymore, darling, she winked over her shoulder. We have an image to maintain. She walked out, leaving Izuku standing in the middle of his office, terrified, confused, and strangely excited. The morning sun hit the sprawling metropolis of Mizurufu, gleaming off the glass skyscrapers and warming the pavement. It was the kind of day that usually signaled hope, productivity, and the bustling energy of a society protected by heroes. For Izuku Midoriya, it signaled impending doom. He sat at his kitchen table, a wobbly, circular thing he'd bought secondhand, staring at his phone. His apartment was located in a high-security building designated for pro-heroes, but the interior looked less like the residence of the number one hero and more like the dorm room of a college student who had forgotten to unpack. There were stacks of quirk analysis notebooks on the floor, A limited edition All Might toaster on the counter, and absolutely no decorations on the walls other than a calendar that was 2 months out of date. On his phone screen, a video was playing. It was a clip from a morning talk show, and honestly, who can blame them? The host was saying, her voice shrill with excitement. The height difference alone is enough to make you swoon. We have reports that empty lady was seen leaving the mighty tower late yesterday evening. Sources say she looked radiant. Is a wedding on the horizon? Izuku groaned, letting his forehead hit the table with a dull thunk. I just wanted to help her with her ankle, he mumbled into the wood. Why does the internet think we're eloping? His phone buzzed. It was a text from his mother Inko. Izuku. Why didn't you tell me? She seems tall. Do you need me to tailor your suits? Call me. He ignored it. He couldn't deal with his mother's frantic joy right now. He had bigger problems. Specifically, the 60-page document currently sitting in his email inbox, sent at 3 a.m. by one Takayama. The subject line simply read, the plan. He had skimmed it. It was terrifying. It contained words like asset consolidation, brand synergy, and cohabitation clauses. A sharp knock at his door made him jump so hard he activated float, hovering 3 feet above his chair. He scrambled to deactivate the quirk, crashing back down and nearly knocking over his coffee. He hurried to the door, checking the peephole. Standing in the hallway was a woman in a trench coat, a wide-brimmed hat, and oversized sunglasses. She looked like a spy from a bad movie. Izuku opened the door. Takayama-san? Takayama pushed past him before he could finish the sentence, bringing with her a gust of expensive perfume, lilac and something sharp, like ozone. She locked the door behind her, leaned back against it, and slid down until she was sitting on the floor, exhaling a long, shuddering breath. Clear, she whispered. I think I lost them. Izuku stared at her. Lost who? The paparazzi, she hissed, pulling off her sunglasses to reveal tired eyes. She looked less like the confident diva who had stormed his office yesterday, and more like a fugitive. They're everywhere, Midoriya. They're camped outside my agency. They're outside my apartment. I had to shrink down to 10 centimeters and ride in a delivery drone just to get out of my block. She stood up, brushing dust off her coat, and looked around his apartment. Her eyes narrowed. So, she said, her voice flat. This is how the symbol of peace lives. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck, suddenly self-conscious about the pile of laundry on his sofa. I'm rarely home. Patrols, you know. It's depressing, you declared, walking into the living room and picking up a limited edition All Might figure. She inspected it critically. You have the disposable income of a small country, and you live like a monk. We're going to have to change that. Change that? Izuku asked, his voice rising an octave. Takayama-san, about yesterday, you can't be serious about this marriage thing. I read the email, but, she corrected, setting the figure down. She turned to face him, her expression hardening into business mode. And I am deadly serious. Sit down, Midoriya. We need to talk numbers. They sat at his wobbly kitchen table. You produced a physical copy of the contract from her coat, a thick stack of paper bound with a purple clip, and slammed it down between them. The narrative, she began, pointing a manicured finger at him. The public has already written it. We are the opposites attract couple. You are the brooding, stoic, powerful savior. I am the glamorous, slightly chaotic, high-profile heroine. It works because it balances the scales. You ground me, I humanize you. Izuku picked up the contract, flipping to page 5. Section 3, Clause B. Handholding is mandatory during all public egress. Clause C. Social media posts must occur biweekly and include at least one candid photo. He looked up, his face burning. Takayama-san. You-san. This is lying. It's deceiving the public. Heroes are supposed to be truthful. Heroes are supposed to inspire, you shot back. And right now, do you know what the public is inspired by? Not just punching villains. They want hope. They want to believe that even the godlike Deku has a heart. And me? She paused, her confidence wavering for a fraction of a second. She looked away, toward the window. My numbers are stabilizing, Midoriya. For the first time in years. If I come out and say just kidding, we aren't together, the backlash won't just put me back where I was. It will destroy me. They'll call me a manipulator. A liar. My agency will fold. Izuku watched her carefully. He had always known MT Lady as somewhat vain, a hero who cared about the camera as much as the crime fighting. But his time as a pro had taught him to analyze people, not just quirks. He saw the tension in her jaw. The way her hand gripped the edge of the table until her knuckles were white. It's not just about the agency, is it? Izuku asked quietly. You stiffened. She looked back at him, her violet eyes guarded. I'm 29, she said. Her voice was lower now, stripped of the performative flair. Next year, I'll be 30. Do you know what happens to female heroes with gigantification quirks when they hit 30? Izuku stayed silent, waiting. Gravity wins, she said bitterly. And the media moves on. There's a new girl, Titanus, debuting next month. She's 18. She's fresh. The networks are already calling her the new improved MT Lady. I'm being phased out, Midoriya. I'm being written off as a legacy act. A has-been. She leaned forward, her eyes pleading. I'm not done. I'm not ready to retire to talk shows and autograph signings. I can still fight. I can still save people. But I can't do that if I lose my funding and my spot on the charts. I need a lifeline. I need relevance. Izuku looked down at the contract again. He thought about the world he had fought so hard to save. It was a peaceful world, yes, but it was still a cruel one. The hero industry was a meat grinder, chewing up people and spitting them out when they lost their marketability. He remembered being quirkless. He remembered the feeling of being told he was useless, that he didn't matter, that he should just give up. You wasn't asking for money. She was asking for a chance to keep being a hero. I don't like lying, Izuku said softly. You flinched, preparing to grab her papers and leave. But Izuku continued, I don't like the idea of a hero being discarded just because of a number on a birthday cake either. He pulled a pen from his pocket. He didn't sign immediately. Instead, he flipped to the back of the contract, to the blank page for addendums. If we do this, Izuku said, his voice firming up, sounding more like the number one hero, we do it my way. I have conditions. You blinked, surprised. Name them. Condition 1, Izuku wrote as he spoke, his handwriting messy and frantic. No compromising safety. If a villain attacks, the romance stops. We prioritize civilians. No posing for photos while a building is burning. You nodded. Agreed. I'm a diva, not a monster. Condition 2, Izuku continued. We don't lie to the people who matter. I'm telling my mom. And I'm telling my friends from Class A. I won't let them worry about me. Fine, you sighed. But warn them to keep their mouths shut. Especially that great kid. If he leaks this, I will punt him into the sun. Condition 3, Izuku said, looking up. The finances. I don't want your money, and you don't need mine. We keep our accounts separate. Any profit made from couple merchandise or joint appearances gets donated to charity. Specifically to victim relief funds. You stared at him. All of it? That's millions of yen, Midoriya. We're heroes, Yu-san, Izuku said simply. We aren't doing this to get rich. We're doing this to help you stay in the game. If we profit off a lie, then we really are just scammers. If we give it back, then maybe it's okay. You looked at him for a long moment. She saw the absolute, unwavering conviction in his eyes. It was annoying. It was noble. It was exactly why he was number one. A small, genuine smile touched her lips. You really are the symbol of peace, aren't you? You make me feel like a villain for wanting a new car. I'm just trying to do the right thing, Izuku muttered, blushing. So? Is it a deal? You reached across the table. She didn't offer a handshake. She placed her hand over his, pressing it down onto the contract. Deal, she said. But I have one condition of my own. What? You have to let me redecorate this apartment, she said, looking around with disdain. If I'm going to pretend to live here, I refuse to do it surrounded by All Might memorabilia. It's like sleeping in a shrine. Izuku sighed, defeated. Fine. Just leave the toaster. The Civil Registry Office, 11:45 p.m. The plan was simple. Get in, get the license, get out. They chose a registry office in a small satellite town 2 hours away from Yuzurifu. It was late, raining, and the office was staffed by a single night shift clerk who looked like he hadn't slept since the dawn of quirks. Izuku was wearing a disguise that you had put together. It consisted of a black beanie, a medical mask, and a streetwear jacket that was 2 sizes too big. He looked like a suspicious teenager. You was wearing a blonde wig cut into a bob, glasses, and a tracksuit. She looked like a tired soccer mom. They stood at the counter, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The clerk, a man with a mutation quirk that gave him the head of a sloth, moved with agonizing slowness as he stamped their forms. Names? The clerk drawled. Izuku Midoriya, Izuku whispered, looking over his shoulder at the empty waiting room. You Takayama, you replied, tapping her foot impatiently. The sloth man paused. He looked up. His large, watery eyes blinked slowly. Midoriya, and Takayama, he repeated. He squinted at Izuku. You look like that Deku kid. Izuku froze. I get that a lot. Common face. Very plain. And you, the clerk looked at you. You look like empty lady. If she was shorter. And dressed like she gave up on life. Yu's eye twitched. We just have those kinds of faces, sir. Can we please sign? The clerk shrugged. He clearly didn't get paid enough to care about conspiracy theories. He pushed the ledger forward. Sign here. And here. Witness? We don't have one, you said. Need a witness, the clerk drawled. Or you can pay the expedite fee and I'll sign as witness. Here, you slammed a wad of cash onto the counter. Sign it. The clerk stamped the paper. Ka-thunk. Congratulations, he droned. You are now legally married. You may kiss the bride, or whatever. Izuku and you stood there, staring at the paper. It was official. It wasn't a PR stunt anymore. Legally, in the eyes of the Japanese government, the #1 hero and the giant heroine were husband and wife. We did it, Izuku whispered, feeling a wave of nausea mixed with adrenaline. We did, you said? She snatched the marriage certificate and shoved it into her purse. Now let's get out of here before he wakes up and realizes who we are. They rushed out into the rainy night, diving into the black sedan you had rented. As Izuku fumbled with his seatbelt, the reality of the situation crashed down on him. He sat back, staring at the rain streaking the windshield. I'm married, he said. I'm 21 and I'm married. You started the engine. She glanced at him, her expression unreadable in the dashboard lights. Don't panic, Green Bean, she said, though her own hands were shaking slightly on the steering wheel. It's just a piece of paper. Nothing changes. We just live together. And go on dates. And tell everyone we're in love. Right, Izuku squeaked. Nothing changes. You put the car in gear. By the way, we have a press conference tomorrow at noon. Wear a suit. A nice one. Not the one you wore to your graduation. Yes, ma'am. And Midoriya? Yes? You looked at him, and for a moment, the car felt very small. Thank you, she said. There was no sarcasm. No business angle. Just gratitude. You didn't have to do this. I know that. Izuku met her eyes. He saw the fear she was hiding so well. Partners, he said, repeating the word from their handshake. We've got each other's backs. You smiled, a small, tired, real smile. Partners. She punched the accelerator, and they drove back toward the city lights, toward the scandal that was about to consume their lives. 2 days later, moving day. If the contract was the theory, moving day was the practical exam. And Izuku was failing. Where, you asked, standing in the center of his living room, are we supposed to put my shoe collection? Izuku looked at the 3 large moving trucks parked illegally outside his building. You have 3 trucks of stuff? This is a 2-bedroom apartment. 1 truck is clothes, you listed, counting on her fingers. 1 truck is furniture because I refuse to sit on that beanbag chair you call a sofa. And the 3rd truck is skincare and hero equipment. I have 1 closet, Izuku pleaded. 1, then we'll build another one, you declared. She pointed at the spare bedroom, which Izuku currently used as a gym. That room. It's now the walk-in closet. But that's where I train. Train at the agency, you dismissed him, waving a hand at the movers who were currently hauling a massive, velvet, purple chaise lounge into the hallway. Careful with that. It's Italian! Izuku stood in the corner, holding his all-might toaster like a security blanket. His quiet, monastic life was being invaded. The smell of ozone and old paper was being replaced by lavender diffusers. His bare walls were being covered with modern art prints. This is chaos, he whispered to himself. It's domestic bliss, you corrected, appearing beside him. She was wearing a casual oversized shirt and shorts, her hair tied up in a messy bun. It was the most relaxed he had ever seen her. She took the toaster from his hands and set it on the counter. Relax, Midoriya, she said. We have to make it look convincing. If the paparazzi use a thermal scope or a drone, they need to see two people living here. They need to see a woman's touch. She picked up a framed photo she had brought, a picture of her and Izuku from the canyon incident, already framed in gold. She placed it prominently on the mantel. There, she said, stepping back. Now it looks like a home. Izuku looked at the photo. Then he looked at you, who was directing the movers with the authority of a general. Where do I sleep? He asked suddenly. I mean, the contract says we sleep in the same room for security and appearances, but... You paused. A faint blush dusted her cheeks. We have a king-size bed coming, she said, avoiding his eyes. It's big enough that we won't even touch. I'll stay on my side, you stay on yours. I wear pajamas, Midoriya. I'm not going to seduce you. I didn't think you were. Izuku waved his hands frantically. I snore sometimes. And I mutter in my sleep. I sleep like the dead, you shrugged. Unless you start activating quirks in your nightmares, we'll be fine. She turned back to the movers. Put the vanity mirror by the window. The lighting needs to be natural. Izuku sighed, watching his apartment transform. Later that night, the trucks were gone. The boxes were mostly unpacked, or at least hidden. The apartment was unrecognizable. It smelled good. The furniture was soft. There were throw pillows everywhere. Izuku sat on the new velvet sofa, feeling like a guest in his own home. You walked out of the bathroom. She had showered and was wearing silk pajamas. She was towel-drying her hair. Without the mask, the costume, and the makeup, she looked younger. She looked vulnerable. Pizza is here, she said, nodding toward the door. I ordered extra cheese. Don't tell my nutritionist. They sat on the floor by the coffee table, eating pizza straight from the box. The tension from the moving chaos had settled into a comfortable, albeit strange, silence. So, Izuku said, taking a bite. We have the gala tomorrow night. The grand debut. Yep, you said, popping a pepperoni into her mouth. The hero billboard chart ceremony. Everyone will be there. The press, the top 10, the investors. It's the perfect stage. I'm not good at parties, Izuku admitted. I usually stand in the corner and talk to Todoroki-kun about udon. Not tomorrow, you said? She reached out and poked him in the forehead. Tomorrow, you are the charming husband of MT Lady. You're going to smile, you're going to hold my waist, and you're going to look like you're the luckiest man alive. I can try, Izuku muttered. You don't have to try too hard, you said softly. Izuku looked at her. You saved me, Midoriya, she said, her voice quiet. Back at the canyon? And now with this. You're doing a lot for me. Acting like I like you, it won't be hard. Izuku felt his face heat up. Same. I mean, you're a great hero, you-san. It's an honor to be, fake married to you, you laughed. It was a bright, genuine sound. You're a terrible flirt, Deku. I'm working on it. We'll work on it together, she said. She stood up and stretched. All right, lights out. We have a big day. Phase 1 of Operation Power Couple starts tomorrow. She walked toward the bedroom. At the door, she paused and looked back. Are you coming? Izuku swallowed hard. He looked at the bedroom door. The king-size bed awaited. The contract was signed. The apartment was full. There was no going back now. Yeah, Izuku said, standing up. I'm coming. The alarm clock on the bedside table didn't beep. It didn't buzz. It played a recorded voice clip of All Might shouting, I am here. To wake you up. It was 4 a.m. Izuku Midoriya's hand shot out from under the duvet with the precision of a cobra strike, silencing the device before the second syllable could fully resonate. He lay there in the darkness, his eyes wide open, his breathing steady. This had been his routine for years. Wake up, meditate for 10 minutes to settle the vestiges of one for all, drink a protein shake, and go for a 10-mile run before the sun crested the horizon. He sat up, stretching his arms, feeling the satisfying pop of his spine. Whump! A heavy, limp arm draped itself over his face. Izuku froze. For a split second, his combat instincts flared. Enemy? Villain? Nomu? Before his brain rebooted and remembered the events of the last 72 hours. Right. He was married. He peeled the arm off his face. It belonged to Utakayama, the pro-hero empty lady, currently drooling onto a silk pillowcase that cost more than Izuku's monthly food budget. They had been living together for exactly 2 days, and the adjustment period was proving to be more difficult than the final battle against Shigaraki. Izuku carefully shimmied to the edge of the massive king-sized bed. Yu was what one might call a territorial sleeper. Despite the vast expanse of mattress available to them, she had somehow managed to migrate diagonally across the entire surface, turning herself into a human blockade. Her blonde hair was a chaotic halo, and she was wearing a silk eye mask that read, "Do not disturb," in glittery letters. Izuku placed one foot on the floor. MMPH. Yu groaned, shifting. Her leg kicked out, catching Izuku squarely in the kidneys. Oof, Izuku wheezed quietly. No photos. She mumbled into her pillow, smacking her lips. Agency policy, talk to Hideo. Izuku rubbed his side, grimacing. He tiptoed toward the door, navigating the obstacle course that was their bedroom floor. When Yu had said she was unpacking, what she meant was exploding her suitcases. There were shoes everywhere. High heels, combat boots, casual sneakers, and slippers with bunny ears. He successfully stepped over a pile of fashion magazines, dodged a discarded towel, and was just about to reach the safety of the hallway when his foot caught on something hard and metallic. Clang! He tripped, flailing his arms, and barely managed to catch himself on the doorframe. He looked down. It was one of her purple horns, a spare prop from her costume, lying in the middle of the floor like a caltrop. Midoriya! Yu's voice was a groggy roar from the bed. If you don't stop moving, I will step on you. Sorry. Izuku whispered frantically. Just going for a run. Go back to sleep. It's 4 a.m, she hissed, pulling the duvet over her head. Only psychopaths and bakers are awake. Go away. Izuku sighed, grabbed his running shoes, and fled the room. 6:30 a.m. The kitchen. By the time Izuku returned from his run, drenched in sweat and feeling significantly more centered, the sun was up. He showered in the guest bathroom, since the master bathroom was currently designated as a hazardous chemical zone due to Yu's skincare routine, and headed to the kitchen to make breakfast. He liked structure. He liked order. He opened the refrigerator. Where is it? He muttered, moving jars around. I know I bought it. His carton of eggs was missing. In its place was a massive tub of something green labeled Kelp Collagen Booster, and 3 bottles of white wine. He closed the fridge and looked at the counter. There, sitting next to the sink, was an empty frying pan with the remnants of what looked like scrambled eggs. She ate 12 eggs? Izuku whispered in horror. Last night? He heard footsteps. Yu shuffled into the kitchen. She looked like a different species than the glamorous woman on the billboards. She was wearing an oversized t-shirt that hung off one shoulder, fuzzy socks, and her hair was tied up in a messy bun that defied gravity. She hadn't put in her contacts yet, so she was squinting, wearing a pair of thick-rimmed glasses that made her eyes look huge. Morning, she grunted, heading straight for the coffee maker. Good morning, Yu-san, Izuku said, trying to be cheerful. Did you sleep well? No, she said, pouring black coffee into a mug that said Queen of Everything. Because someone stomps around like a nervous elephant before dawn. I was trying to be quiet. Izuku defended himself, leaning against the counter. And I tripped over your horn. Why was your horn on the floor? It's aesthetic clutter, Yu waved a hand dismissively. She took a sip of coffee and sighed, seemingly coming to life. Besides, I was organizing my costume repairs. I can't find my spare mask. She looked at him, squinting through her glasses. Why are you wearing a suit? Izuku looked down at himself. He was wearing his standard hero agency suit, gray, practical, boring. I have a meeting with the police commissioner at 8 o'clock regarding the cleanup in Sector 4. You look like an accountant, you said flatly. Go change. What? No. This is my work clothes. Midoriya, she groaned, setting her mug down. She walked over to him, grabbed his tie, and frowned. We are the couple now. We are trendsetters. You cannot leave this building looking like you're about to audit someone's taxes. Put on the navy blazer I bought you. And lose the tie. Unbutton the top button. Show some clavicle. Show some clavicle? Izuku flushed. I'm the #1 hero, not a boy band member. Same thing these days, you said, turning back to the fridge. Oh, by the way, we're out of eggs. Izuku's eye twitched. I noticed. I was hungry, she shrugged, opening the kelp collagen tub and eating a spoonful of the green goop directly. Growing girl. High metabolism. You need to put things on the shopping list if you finish them, Izuku said, tapping the magnetic notepad on the fridge. It's a system. Order. Efficiency. You rolled her eyes. You're such a nag. Put it on the list, you. Don't leave your boots in the hallway, you. Don't eat all the cheese, you. Do you ever relax? I relax? Izuku insisted. I analyze quark theory. It's very soothing. You stared at him. That is the saddest sentence I have ever heard. She finished her coffee in one gulp and slammed the mug down. I need the bathroom for 45 minutes. Do not knock. Do not breathe loudly near the door. If you need to pee, use the gym at your agency. She marched off toward the master bedroom. Izuku stood alone in his kitchen, staring at the empty egg carton. I miss living alone, he whispered to the toaster. 7:45 a.m. The commute. The elevator ride down to the lobby was tense. Izuku was wearing the navy blazer. He had unbuttoned the top button. He felt exposed and ridiculous. You, meanwhile, had transformed. The messy bun was gone, replaced by flowing, perfectly curled golden locks. The glasses were replaced by her signature violet contacts. She was wearing a chic, high-waisted pencil skirt and a lavender blouse that screamed professional power woman. She was checking her makeup in the reflective elevator doors. Okay, listen up, she said, her voice crisp. Hideo says the lobby is swarming. There are at least 3 networks down there. Great, Izuku muttered, adjusting his collar. I just wanted to get coffee. We are selling the fantasy, Midoriya, she said, slapping his hand away from his collar. Stop fidgeting. When the doors open, I'm going to take your arm. You are going to look at me and smile. Not you're nervous, I'm terrified of girls' smile. Your I save the world smile. I don't have different smiles. Yes, you do. Channel All Might. But sexier. Please stop saying that. Ding. The elevator doors slid open. The flashbulbs were blinding. It was like walking into a supernova. A wall of noise hit them instantly. Deku-san. Deku-san. MT lady. Over here. Are the rumors true about the pregnancy? Izuku stumbled slightly, blinded by the lights. Immediately he felt a hand slip through the crook of his arm. Yu pressed herself against his side, her grip firm, grounding him. Good morning, everyone. Yu beamed, waving with her free hand. She looked radiant. She looked happy. Please, no pushing. We're just heading to work. She leaned in close to Izuku, whispering through her teeth while maintaining a perfect smile. Smile, damn it. Look at me. Izuku forced a smile. He looked down at her. For a second, the acting wasn't hard. The light caught her hair, and she really did look stunning. She was handling the chaos with such ease, shielding him from the worst of the shouting questions by answering them herself with charming non-answers. We're very happy, thank you. She called out. No date set yet, we're taking it slow. She squeezed his arm. Izuku relaxed slightly. He realized she was physically positioning herself slightly in front of him, blocking the angle of the more aggressive reporters. She's protecting me, he realized. In her own way. They made it to the curb where a black car from his agency was waiting. Izuku opened the door for her. Chivalry isn't dead. A reporter shouted. You slid into the back seat. Izuku followed, closing the door and shutting out the noise. As the car pulled away, Yu instantly slumped against the window, the smile dropping like a mask. God, I hate mornings, she groaned. Did you see that guy from Channel 4? He was trying to get a shot up my skirt. Vulture. Izuku frowned, his hands clenching into fists. I should have said something. Don't bother, she waved a hand. Comes with the territory. She looked at him, eyeing the blazer. See? You looked good. The photos will be great. I felt like a prop, Izuku admitted. We are props, Green Bean, you said, closing her eyes. We're symbols. People project what they want onto us. Might as well control the projection. The car stopped at the intersection where they would part ways. Her agency was in Shibuya. His was in the center of Mizurafu. Don't forget, you said as she opened her door. Tonight. Dinner. My turn to cook. I'm making curry. Izuku blinked. You cook? I'm full of surprises, she winked. Just be home by 7. And pick up your socks. She stepped out into the street, instantly switching the smile back on as pedestrians recognized her. Izuku watched her go, feeling a strange mixture of admiration and exhaustion. 12:30 p.m. The mighty tower. So, she's driving you crazy. Katsuki Bakugo sat on the edge of Izuku's desk, eating a spicy granola bar and looking entirely too pleased with himself. I didn't say crazy, Izuku sighed, burying his face in his hands. I said intense. She's very intense, Kaken. She's a slob, isn't she? Bakugo smirked. I've seen her agency. Her office looks like a bomb went off in a Sephora. It's not just a mess, Izuku vented, standing up and pacing. It's the lack of routine. She sleeps in until the last possible second. She eats garbage. She leaves her giant hero gear in the hallway. Do you know how much a gigantification boot weighs? I stubbed my toe on it, and I think I cracked the floorboard. Ha! Bakugo barked a laugh. The man who punched Shigaraki into the stratosphere is defeated by a shoe. And the contract? Izuku continued, waving his arms. We have a schedule for social media posts. I have to take a selfie with her tonight captioned Cozy Vibes. I don't do cozy vibes, Kaken. I do justice vibes. Bakugo crunched on his granola bar. You did sign the paper, nerd. You wanted to play Prince Charming. I wanted to help a friend. And now you're paying the price. Bakugo hopped off the desk. He walked over to Izuku and poked him in the chest. Listen. You're overthinking it. Like you always do. I am not. You are. You're trying to analyze her like a quirk. You think if you figure out her inputs and outputs, you can solve living with her. Bakugo scowled. She's a person, not a math problem. And she's a pro. She's lasted this long in the industry for a reason. Maybe instead of complaining about her mess, you should figure out why she's messy. Izuku paused. That was surprisingly insightful, Kaken. Don't get used to it, Bakugo growled. Now get back to work. We have reports of a villain group moving scrap metal in the industrial district. If you're late for patrol because you're worrying about your fake wife, I'll blast you myself. 7:15 p.m. The apartment. Izuku was late. A meeting with the support team had run long, and then there had been a minor incident with a purse snatcher on the way home. By the time he unlocked the door to the apartment, it was 7:15. I'm sorry, he called out, toeing off his red boots. I got held up at. He stopped. The apartment looked like a tornado had touched down inside it. There were clothes everywhere, different outfits than this morning. There were open boxes of pasta on the counter. There was a pot on the stove that was boiling over, sizzling loudly, and sitting in the middle of the living room, blocking the path to the kitchen, was Yu's entire armor assembly for her left leg, disassembled and spread out on oil-stained newspapers. Yu was sitting on the floor in the middle of the armor, wearing a tank top and grease-stained shorts, scrubbing a hydraulic joint with a toothbrush. She looked furious. You're late, she said without looking up. I know, I'm sorry, Izuku said, stepping over a pile of silk scarves. He rushed to the stove and turned off the burner. The curry she had promised looked more like brown soup. Yu-san, what happened here? I tried to cook, she snapped, scrubbing harder at the metal joint. And then I realized my knee actuator was jamming, so I had to strip it down because the support department is backed up and they said I'd have to wait 3 days. I can't wait 3 days, Midoriya. If I can't grow, I can't work. Okay, Izuku said slowly. But why are the clothes on the floor? I couldn't decide what to wear for the stupid selfie. she shouted, throwing the toothbrush across the room. It hit the wall with a wet thwack. She stood up, her hands covered in machine grease. She was trembling. I'm trying, okay? She said, her voice cracking. I'm trying to be the perfect wife, and the perfect hero, and the perfect roommate. But I'm not you. I'm not organized. I don't have a schedule for breathing. I never asked you to be perfect, Izuku said, putting his hands up. I just asked for a little order. Order is boring. You yelled. Order is easy when you're the #1 hero and everyone worships the ground you walk on. You don't have to worry about your wrinkles or your ratings or whether your costume is too tight. You just punch things and people cheer. That's not fair, Izuku frowned, his own temper flaring. I work hard. I sacrifice everything for this job. So do I. You stepped closer, towering over him even in her human form. But I have to do it backwards and in heels. I have to manage an image because if I don't, I disappear. This mess? She gestured wildly at the apartment. This is my life. It's chaotic because I'm terrified that if I stop moving for 1 second, it all goes away. Then let me help you. Izuku shouted back. That's the whole point of this arrangement. But you won't let me. You just create chaos and expect me to navigate it. I don't need your pity help. It's not pity. It's partnership. Partnership implies equality. You argued. And right now, I feel like your charity case. The air in the room was electric with tension. Izuku's green lightning flickered instinctively around his shoulders. Yu's eyes were glowing slightly violet. Boom. The argument was cut short by a massive explosion that shook the entire building. The windows rattled in their frames. The lights flickered. Izuku and Yu froze, their eyes locking. The anger vanished instantly, replaced by the cold, sharp clarity of combat. That was close, Izuku said, his voice dropping to his command register. 3 blocks east. Industrial district, Yu confirmed, wiping the grease from her hands onto her shorts. Sounded like structural collapse. Suit up? Izuku asked. Yu looked at her disassembled leg armor on the floor. I can't. My armor is in pieces. You don't need the armor to be a hero, Izuku said firmly. You just need to be big. Yu looked at him. She saw the challenge in his eyes. Right, she nodded. She grabbed her mask from the coffee table. Let's go. The industrial district, 7:30 p.m. The scene was a nightmare. A massive warehouse complex was crumbling. A villain group known as the Scrap Metal Syndicate, a trio of villains with telekinetic control over metal and debris, was tearing the district apart. They were building a fortress out of the city itself, pulling cars, girders, and streetlights into a swirling vortex of junk. Police cars were flying through the air, tossed aside like toys. We need backup. A police officer screamed into his radio. We can't get close. The debris field is too dense. A green blur shot past the police line, followed by a woman who grew to 60 feet tall in mid-sprint. Smash! Izuku hit the swirling wall of metal with a blast of air pressure, punching a hole through the junk. Empty lady! Now! He shouted. Yu, now in her giant form, and thankfully wearing her stretchy undersuit, though missing her armor plating, lunged through the opening Izuku had created. She slammed her shoulder into the main villain, a man made of magnetized gears, and drove him into the ground. Get off me, you oversized doll! The villain shrieked. He raised his hands, and a storm of sharp rebar spears shot toward Yu's exposed face. Yu flinched. She was slow. Without her leg actuators, her movement was sluggish. She couldn't dodge in time. Zzzt. Black whip tendrils shot out from below, grabbing the rebar spears in midair and snapping them like twigs. Izuku landed on Yu's shoulder. I've got your blind spots. He yelled over the roar of the battle. Focus on the heavy lifting. I'll handle the projectiles. Yu grinned, a fierce, feral expression returning to her face. Roger that, hubby. The dynamic shifted. In the apartment, their differences were a source of friction. Izuku was too fast, Yu was too messy. Izuku was rigid, Yu was chaotic. But here? On the battlefield? It was perfect. Yu was the anchor. She was the immovable object, the chaos engine. She grabbed entire shipping containers and used them as shields. She stomped the ground to disrupt the villain's footing. She drew all the fire because she was impossible to ignore. Izuku was the satellite. He was the order within the chaos. He zipped around her massive form, using Black Whip to catch debris that slipped past her guard. He used Float to dance between her attacks, striking the villains in the gaps she created. "Hi, right," Izuku called out. "You didn't look." She just swung her arm to the right, swatting a villain out of the air. "Low left," she boomed. Izuku dove, kicking a grenade away before it could detonate near her ankle. They didn't need to speak. They didn't need to bicker about toothpaste or laundry. The language of battle was universal. The main villain, a hulking mass of compressed cars, roared and tried to bring a crane down on Yu's head. "Deku! Launch me!" Yu shouted. She crouched low. Izuku understood instantly. He landed on the ground behind her heel. He wrapped Black Whip around her waist and activated gearshift. "Canyon Cannon. Prototype." He pulled back, loading detention, and then released while blasting her forward with a shockwave of air. Yu shot forward with impossible speed for her size. She became a 60-foot battering ram. Titan kick! Her foot connected with the villain's chest. The impact was deafening. The villain, and the wall of junk behind him, disintegrated. The scrap metal scattered like confetti. Silence fell over the district. Yu stood amidst the wreckage, panting heavily. She shrank down slowly, steam rising from her skin. She stumbled, her knee giving out where the actuator should have been. Izuku was there instantly. He caught her before she hit the ground. "I got you," he said. Yu looked up at him. They were both covered in soot, grease, and dust. Izuku's blazer was ruined, torn at the shoulder. Yu's hair was a disaster. She started to laugh. It started as a chuckle and turned into a full belly laugh. "What?" Izuku asked, breathless. "What's funny?" She wheezed, gesturing between them. "We are a disaster." Izuku looked at her grease-stained face, then at his ruined suit. He smiled. "Yeah. We kind of are." "But you said," wiping a tear from her eye. "We kicked their ass." "We did," Izuku agreed. "Your kick was very efficient. And your cover fire was adequate," she teased. Suddenly, bright lights flooded them. The news crews had arrived. "Deku! MT Lady! Is this your first joint mission as a couple? Did you plan that combo move? Look at how he holds her." Usually you would pose. Usually Izuku would run. But this time, Yu just leaned her head against Izuku's chest. She was too tired to pose. "Let's go home," she whispered. "I'm starving." Izuku looked at the cameras, then down at her. He felt a surge of pride. Not for the hero MT Lady, but for you. "Yeah," he said. "Let's go home." 9:30 p.m. The apartment. The adrenaline had faded, replaced by the deep, aching exhaustion that only heroes know. They had showered, separately, and were now sitting on the floor of the living room again. The mess was still there. The disassembled armor was still scattered. The burnt curry pot was still soaking in the sink. But the tension was gone. Izuku was holding an ice pack to his shoulder. Yu was bandaging a scrape on her knee. "I'm sorry about the curry," Yu said quietly, staring at the floor. "It's okay," Izuku said. "I can't cook either. I usually just eat instant rice." "I'm sorry about the yelling," she added. "I really am scared, Izuku. I feel like I'm fighting a losing battle against time." Izuku looked at her. He saw the woman behind the mask. "You're not a charity case," he said firmly. "Today proved that. I couldn't have stopped that collapse without you. You create space. You draw attention. You're strong, Yu." Yu looked up, surprised by the intensity in his voice. "And about the mess?" Izuku sighed, looking around. "I can learn to live with a little clutter. Just maybe keep the giant boots in the closet? I really like my toes intact." Yu smirked. "I can do that." She picked up a piece of the disassembled armor. "I don't know how to fix this. I was bluffing earlier." Izuku scooted closer. He picked up the actuator joint. His eyes lit up with that familiar, analytical spark. "Actually," he said, tapping the metal, "I think the servo is just misaligned. If we retorque the primary bolt and apply some grease here." "I used to fix my own support gear at UA sometimes. Hatsum-san taught me." You watched him. He was muttering again, his hands moving deftly over the machinery. He looked focused. Competent. You're a nerd, she said affectionately. I know, he replied, not looking up. Hand me the wrench? She handed him the tool. They sat there for an hour, fixing her armor together in the middle of the chaotic living room. It wasn't romantic in the traditional sense. It smelled like grease and ozone, but when Izuku finally snapped the piece back into place and looked up with a triumphant grin, you felt a strange flutter in her chest that had nothing to do with her heart rate. Fixed, he declared. Thanks, Green Bean, she said. She leaned over and kissed him on the cheek. It was quick. Platonic. A thank you? But Izuku froze, turning beet red. You, welcome. He squeaked. You laughed, standing up and stretching. All right. I'm going to bed. And I promise to stay on my side tonight. Okay, Izuku managed to say. She walked to the bedroom. At the door, she turned back. Midoriya? Yes? We can order pizza tomorrow, she said. But put it on the list. Izuku smiled. Deal. As the lights went out in the apartment, the mess was still there. The future was still uncertain. But for the first time, the silence in the apartment didn't feel lonely. It felt shared. The Hero Billboard Chart JP, the biannual ranking event that decided the fate of agencies, endorsement deals, and the social hierarchy of the superhuman society, was less of a ceremony and more of a gladiatorial arena disguised as a black-tie gala. For Izuku Midoriya, facing Shigaraki Tamura had been terrifying. Facing All for One had been apocalyptic, but standing in his own living room, staring at the tuxedo hanging on the back of the door, felt like a different kind of impending doom. It was a midnight blue tuxedo with a black lapel, tailored to within a millimeter of its life. It was sleek, modern, and expensive. It was the kind of suit James Bond would wear if James Bond had green hair and anxiety. Midoriya! Yu's voice rang out from the master bedroom, now officially her bedroom. If you haven't put on the pants yet, I swear I will come out there and dress you myself. I'm putting them on. Izuku yelped, hopping on one leg as he struggled with the trousers. They're tight. Are you sure these are my size? They're fitted, darling. It's called fashion. You've been wearing baggy cargo pants since you were 15. Your glutes deserve better. Izuku flushed, finally buttoning the trousers. He looked in the hallway mirror. He barely recognized himself. The suit emphasized the broad shoulders and muscular build he usually hid under his loose hero costume. He looked older. Dangerous, even. The bedroom door swung open. Izuku turned around, and the breath left his lungs. Yu Takayama stood in the doorway. If she usually commanded attention as empty lady, tonight she commanded worship as Yu. She was wearing a gown that defied physics. It was a shimmering, floor-length dress made of a fabric that looked like liquid violet starlight. It hugged every curve of her athletic frame, featuring a slit that went dangerously high up her left thigh and a backless design that showed off the muscles she had honed over a decade of fighting villains. Her blonde hair was cascaded in old Hollywood waves over one shoulder. She wore diamond earrings that caught the light of the hallway lamp and fractured it into rainbows. She wasn't using her quirk, but she filled the room. You! Izuku started, then stopped. His analysis brain short-circuited. Subject, Yu Takayama? Status, stunning. Danger level, extreme. Yu smirked, walking toward him. She adjusted his bow tie with practiced ease, her perfume enveloping him, lilac and expensive champagne. Close your mouth, Green Bean, she teased, though her eyes softened at his reaction. You look decent. I might actually let you stand next to me. You look amazing, Yu-san, Izuku managed to say, his voice sincere. Is that safe for combat? Just in case? The fabric is reinforced Kevlar weave, she said, smoothing the lapel of his jacket. And the heels have retractable spikes. I'm always ready. But tonight, the battlefield isn't the streets, it's the red carpet. She stepped back, her expression shifting. The playful roommate was gone, the strategist was back. Listen to me, Izuku. This is it. The debut. We've had the rumors, the leaked photos, the speculation. Tonight we confirm it. Right, Izuku nodded, his stomach doing flip-flops. The plan. We hold hands. We smile. We don't deny the question. Exactly, you said? She reached out and took his hand. Her palms were cool, but he noticed a slight tremor in her fingers. He looked at her, surprised. The confident, unstoppable empty lady was shaking. You? He asked softly. She took a deep breath, squeezing his hand. I'm at number 8 in the preliminary polls, Izuku. If tonight goes wrong, if we look awkward, or fake, or if the press turns on us, I drop back to the 20s. This industry, it eats women my age alive if they stumble. She looked up at him, her violet eyes wide and vulnerable behind the perfectly applied mascara. Don't let me stumble. Izuku felt a sudden surge of resolve. The anxiety about the suit, the cameras, and the lying faded. This was a mission. His partner was in danger, and he was the only one who could protect her. He squeezed her hand back, firm and steady. He channeled the feeling of one for all, not the power, but the presence. I won't, Izuku said, his voice dropping an octave, sounding very much like the number 1 hero. I've got you. Just follow my lead. You blinked, surprised by the shift in his demeanor. A genuine smile touched her lips. Okay, hero, she whispered. Let's go break the internet. The red carpet Kamino Ward Convention Center. The noise hit them before they even stepped out of the limousine. It was a physical wall of sound, the roar of thousands of fans, the shouting of reporters, the rapid-fire clicking of shutters that sounded like a swarm of mechanical locusts. The car stopped. A valet opened the door. Ready? You asked, her mask of perfection sliding into place. Ready, Izuku said. He stepped out first. The screaming intensified. DKU! DKU! Over here! Look this way, number 1. Izuku ignored them for a split second. He turned back to the car and extended his hand. A hush fell over the immediate crowd as a leg, long, elegant, and ending in a stiletto heel, emerged. You took his hand and stepped out, rising to her full, human height. The flashbulbs erupted. It was blinding. Night turned to day. Izuku didn't let go of her hand. In fact, he pulled her closer, tucking her hand into the crook of his arm. He could feel her tense up against him, but he patted her hand gently with his own. It's okay, the gesture said. I'm here. They walked the gauntlet. Empty lady. Is it true? Are you two living together? A reporter from Hero News shouted, thrusting a microphone over the velvet rope. You paused, glancing at Izuku. She smiled, a dazzling, camera-ready smile. We value our privacy, of course. But yes, Izuku is very supportive. Deku! Is she too tall for you? A rude tabloid reporter yelled from the back. The crowd gasped. It was a low blow. You stiffened. Izuku stopped walking. He turned slowly to face the reporter. He didn't smile. He didn't look angry. He just looked disappointed. It was the same look All Might used to give villains before arresting them. Her height, Izuku said, his voice calm but projected perfectly so the microphones caught every syllable, is one of the many things that makes her incredible. She stands tall when others crumble. I look up to her in more ways than one. Silence. Absolute silence for 3 seconds. Then, a collective "Awwo" rippled through the crowd. You stared at him. Her mouth opened slightly. That wasn't in the script. That wasn't a rehearsed line. She felt a flush rise up her neck that had nothing to do with the makeup. She squeezed his arm tighter, leaning into him. Smooth, she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. I read a book on romantic retorts, Izuku whispered back, looking straight ahead, his ears burning red. Was it too cheesy? I felt like I was gonna throw up. It was perfect, she murmured. They reached the top of the stairs, turned, and posed for the main photo op. Izuku placed a hand on the small of her back, tentative at first, then firmer as he remembered the contract. You placed a hand on his chest, right over his heart. Click. That image would be on the cover of every magazine in Japan by morning. The green room backstage. The sanctuary of the green room was supposed to be a place of rest, but it was currently a war zone of emotions. This was where the top 10 and select guests waited before the ceremony began. And unfortunately for Izuku, select guests included his former classmates. I can't believe it! The wail was audible from the hallway. Izuku winced as he pushed the door open. Minoru Mineta was on his knees in the center of the room, clutching a glass of sparkling cider, tears streaming down his face in steady rivers. Why? Mineta screamed at the ceiling. Why him? I liked giant women first. I have the sticky quirk. I'm the perfect match. Why does Midoriya get the goddess of the canyon? Genki Kaminari was patting Mineta on the back, though he was grinning. Face it, dude. You don't have the stature. Or the jawline. Seriously, have you seen Midoriya tonight? He looks like he owns the building. Izuku and you walked in. The room went quiet. Bakugo was leaning against the snack table, looking furious in a suit that looked like it wanted to explode off his body. Todoroki was eating a can of cold soba he had somehow smuggled in. Uraraka and Tsuyu were sitting on a love seat, looking wide-eyed. Evening, everyone, Izuku said, trying to sound casual. You! Mineta pointed a shaking finger at Izuku. Traitor! Usurper! How did you do it? What's your secret? Is it the curls? It's the curls, isn't it? Mineta, please, Izuku sighed. You look beautiful, Yusan, Uraraka said, standing up. Her voice was cheerful, but her eyes were searching Izuku's face, looking for signs of distress. That dress is amazing. Thank you, Uraraka-chan, you beamed, stepping into the room and instantly taking command. She didn't treat them like kids, she treated them like peers. I saw your rescue stats last month. Very impressive. Zero gravity creates excellent evacuation corridors. Uraraka blinked, flushing with pride. Oh. Thank you? You had a gift for that, disarming people with professional validation. Bakugo stomped over, shoving a skewer of yakitori into his mouth. He glared at Izuku, then at you. You too, he grunted. You're actually going through with this charade? Kaken! Izuku hissed. Keep it down, whatever, Bakugo scoffed. Just don't let it make you soft, Deku. If you start skipping training to go pick out curtains, I'm taking the #1 spot. I'm not skipping training, Izuku said defensively. And for your information, we picked out curtains last Tuesday and I still benched 400 kilos the next morning. You laughed, resting her elbow on Izuku's shoulder. He's very disciplined, Dynamite. A little too disciplined. I'm trying to teach him the value of a rest day. Rest is for the weak, Bakugo muttered, but he didn't argue further. He looked at you, then back at Izuku. His red eyes narrowed. You don't look miserable. That's annoying. Thanks, Kaken, Izuku smiled nervously. Suddenly, a hand clapped Izuku on the back. It was Kirishima, looking sharp in a red suit. So manly. Kirishima grinned. Stepping up to support your partner. The way you shut down that reporter outside? Pure chivalry, bro. We're all rooting for you. Yeah. Ashido chimed in, popping up from behind the sofa. We want details. Who asked who out? Was it romantic? Did he float you up to a cloud? Okay. Izuku waved his hands, panicking. We have to go take our seats. The ceremony is starting. He grabbed Yu's hand and practically dragged her toward the stage entrance. Your friends are intense, you whispered as they escaped Mineta's sobbing. You have no idea, Izuku exhaled. The ceremony main stage, the lights dimmed. The music swelled, a heroic orchestral score that made everyone's chest swell with pride. President Mike walked onto the stage, his voice amplified to deafening levels. Ladies and gentlemen, heroes and citizens, are you ready to see who stands at the top? The crowd roared. The rankings were announced in descending order. Rank 10, Ryukyu. Rank 9, Kamui Woods, who gave a polite wave. And now, President Mike shouted, making a massive comeback. She's big, she's bold, and she's taken the world by storm this quarter. Climbing 7 spots. Rank number 8, the Mine Hero, MT. Lady, the spotlight snapped to you. She stood up. The applause was thunderous. It was louder than it had been for years. She waved, blowing kisses to the crowd, soaking in the adoration. Izuku watched her. He saw the genuine relief in her eyes. It wasn't just vanity, it was survival. She had done it. She had secured her place. She walked to the podium to give her acceptance speech. Thank you, she said, her voice booming. It's been a hard year for everyone. But we rebuild. We grow. I want to thank my agency, my sidekicks, and... She paused. She looked down at the front row, where Izuku was sitting. The script said she should thank her partner. It was a vague, PR-friendly term, and you continued, her voice softening, I want to thank the person who reminded me that being a hero isn't just about the size of the villain you defeat, but the size of the heart you put into it. Thank you, Izuku. The camera panned to Izuku. He turned bright red, but he smiled and nodded. The crowd went feral. Deku Lady was trending worldwide within seconds. The ceremony continued. Ranks 7 through 2 were announced, Dynamite held on to rank 2 with a scowl, Shoto at rank 3. And finally, Present Mike screamed. The unmovable. The symbol of peace. The indisputable number 1. DKU. Izuku stood up. The applause wasn't just loud, it was heavy. It was the sound of a society that felt safe because he existed. He walked to the stage. He shook hands with the Hero Public Safety Commission president. He took the microphone. He gave his usual speech, humble, focused on teamwork, promising to do better. But as he finished, President Mike leaned in. So, Deku. Mike grinned, ignoring the teleprompter. Great year for justice. But the listeners want to know, is it a great year for love, too? Empty Lady's speech was pretty specific. Izuku froze. This was the moment. The ambush question. He looked at you, standing in the line of top 10 heroes. She gave him a subtle nod. Do it. Izuku took a deep breath. He looked at the camera. I'm very lucky, Izuku said simply. She challenges me. And I'm happy. It was the vaguest, most non-answer possible, but his delivery, earnest and shy, sold it completely. You walked over from her spot at number 8. She broke protocol. She stood next to him at the center podium. He's happy, she quipped into the mic, leaning down to rest her chin on his shoulder, a feat that required her to hunch slightly, emphasizing their height difference in a cute way. But he still needs to learn how to separate his recycling properly. The audience laughed. The tension broke. They weren't just icons, they were a domestic couple bickering about trash. It was human. It was perfect. The gala, the grand ballroom. After the ceremony, the real work began. The gala was a swirling sea of champagne, hors d'oeuvres, and political maneuvering. Izuku and you were separated almost immediately. You was surrounded by potential sponsors and magazine editors. Izuku was cornered by the mayor and several foreign dignitaries. For an hour, Izuku played the role of the number 1. He discussed budgets, collateral damage insurance, and quirk regulations. He was polite, intelligent, and utterly exhausted. He grabbed a glass of water from a passing tray and retreated to a relatively quiet corner near a massive ice sculpture of All Might. Quite the show you're putting on, Midoriya. Izuku turned. Standing there was an older hero, Gale Force. He was a veteran, formerly top 20, now retired to the consulting board. He was holding a scotch and looking at Izuku with a sneer. Sir? Izuku asked politely. The blonde, Gale Force gestured with his glass toward you, who was laughing at a joke made by a jewelry magnate across the room. Empty lady. Smart play marrying her. She's a branding machine. But be careful. Izuku's eyes narrowed. Careful of what? She's a climber, the older man chuckled darkly. Always has been. She used to hang off Kamui Woods until his popularity dipped. Now she's latched onto the number 1. She's a gold digger, son. Once she squeezes the fame out of you, she'll drop you for the next big thing. The air around Izuku grew cold. The glass of water in his hand cracked. In the past, Izuku might have stuttered. He might have been polite to his elder, but he remembered the canyon. He remembered her holding up the mountain until her bones cracked. He remembered her scrubbing grease off her armor on his living room floor, crying because she just wanted to be useful. With all due respect, sir, Izuku said. His voice was low, devoid of his usual nervous stutter. It was the voice of the man who defeated All for One. Gale Force blinked, taking a step back. You don't know her, Izuku continued, stepping into the man's personal space. You see a brand. I see a hero who has saved thousands of lives. I see a woman who works harder than anyone I know to stay relevant in a world that wants to discard her. She isn't climbing, sir. She's fighting. Izuku's green eyes glowed faintly. And she didn't latch on to me. I'm the lucky one to be standing next to her. If you speak about my wife like that again, we're going to have a problem. Gale Force went pale. He swallowed hard, nodded curtly, and hurried away toward the bar. Izuku exhaled, unclenched his fist, and shook the water off his hand. That was intense. Izuku jumped. You was standing behind the ice sculpture. She had heard everything. Her eyes were wide. She wasn't wearing her camera smile. She looked stunned. You-san! I didn't see you there, Izuku stammered, the dangerous aura vanishing instantly. He was being rude, and I couldn't let him. You called me your wife, she whispered. Well, legally you are. Izuku rubbed the back of his neck. And the contract says I have to defend your honor in public settings. You walked around the sculpture. She stopped in front of him. The gala noise seemed to fade away. The contract, she repeated. Right. She looked at him, really looked at him. She had spent 10 years in this industry surrounded by men who looked at her chest, or her bank account, or her ranking. She was used to being a commodity. But Izuku Midoriya had just threatened a senior official because he insulted her work ethic. He didn't defend her beauty, he defended her heroism. Izuku, she said softly. The orchestra began to play a slow waltz. The crowd cleared the center of the floor. Dance with me, she said. It wasn't a command. It was a request. I'm a terrible dancer, Izuku warned. I have 2 left feet. Literally, I broke my left foot twice. It doesn't rotate right. You laughed, a wet, shimmering sound. She took his hand and pulled him toward the dance floor. I'll lead, she said. Just hold on to me. They stepped onto the floor. The spotlight hit them. The crowd murmured appreciatively. You placed her hand on his shoulder. Izuku placed his hand on her waist, pulling her closer than he strictly needed to. They began to move. Izuku was stiff at first, counting the steps under his breath. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, but you guided him effortlessly. She moved with a grace that belied her power. Everyone is watching, Izuku muttered, staring at his feet. Let them watch, you said? She used a finger to lift his chin until he was looking at her. Her face was inches from his. The violet contacts were striking, but he could see the dark brown of her real irises underneath. He saw the faint crow's feet at the corners of her eyes. Evidence of her years of smiling for the cameras and squinting against the sun. Midoriya, she said quietly. What you said to Gale Force, did you mean it? Or was that just the plan? Izuku held her gaze. He stopped counting the steps. The rest of the room blurred into a wash of gold and black. I meant it, he said firmly. You aren't a gold digger, you. You're incredible. You deserve to be top 10. With or without me. You felt her heart slam against her ribs. It was a traitorous organ. It wasn't supposed to do this. This was business. This was survival. But the way he looked at her, he wasn't looking at empty lady, the sex symbol. He was looking at you. A warmth spread through her chest that terrified her more than any villain. You're dangerous, green bean, she whispered, her voice husky. Me? Izuku blinked. I'm harmless. No, she shook her head slightly, her fingers tightening on his shoulder. You make people believe in things. In justice. In peace. She leaned in closer, her forehead resting against his. And you're making me believe this might not be fake. Izuku's breath hitched. He smelled the lilacs. He felt the warmth of her body against his. You. Sure, she silenced him. Don't analyze it. Just dance. They spun slowly in the center of the room. For the first time, Izuku wasn't thinking about the cameras. He wasn't thinking about the contract. He was just holding a woman who was trembling slightly in his arms, and he knew, with absolute certainty, that he didn't want to let go. Across the room, Uraraka watched them. She took a sip of her punch. They look good together, Tsuyu observed. Uraraka smiled, a little sad, but mostly happy. Yeah. They really do. He's not looking at his feet, Tsu. He's never done that before. Back on the floor, the song ended. Izuku, and you didn't pull away immediately. They stood there for a beat too long, caught in the gravity of each other. Finally, you stepped back. Her cheeks were flushed a deep, genuine pink. We should go, she said, her voice breathless. We have the early patrol shift tomorrow. Right, Izuku nodded, feeling dazed. Patrol. They walked off the floor hand in hand. The paparazzi screamed for one last photo. You turned back. She didn't give a peace sign. She didn't wink. She just smiled, a soft, private smile that the cameras captured but couldn't understand. As they walked out into the cool night air, Izuku realized something. His apartment was messy. His schedule was ruined. His life was chaos, and he couldn't wait to get back home.